Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome to the live episode of a special edition of Butterfly Evolution radio show. It's going to be Rodney's not going to be with us today. Again, this is a special edition. I am unpacking Tomeria Jordan, and for those of you who do not know, Tomeria is the wife of Rodney Jordan, who is a host here on the Butterfly Evolution Radio Show. So I'm sure you guys have seen and or heard from her because she's been with us. It seems like since we started to marry, but is it true? Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
2014.
Yeah. Well, we started in 2011, the show itself, and I can't remember what year Rodney started with, but it's been forever. So if you don't know, this is his beautiful wife. Tamara, before we get started, why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself, what you do, and just as much as you'd like to share?
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Tammy. I really appreciate you doing this for being my life coach. So, for anyone that doesn't know, my name is Tomeria Jordan. By trade, I am a training and development manager working on the creation of course content, onboarding training, product training, sales training, service training, you name it, as well as e-learning, design, and development. But outside of that, I have my own LLCs, the first one being CC America, which stands for Confidence Centers of America. And the whole goal and premise of that company is to inspire the lives of others through service, dedication, and faith. And how I envision doing that is through mind, body, and spirit. So the mind piece, I utilize podcasting as a way to connect with audience members and sharing testimonies of faith, inspiration, and transformation. The website is www.ccamericapodcast.com. I am also a licensed Zumba, mixed fit, and Afro group fitness instructor. That is how I have been able to inspire people through the movement of their bodies. And although I took a little bit of a break after my daughter was born, it is something that I am very passionate about in terms of dance and just being able to enjoy life and utilize the arts as a form of expression. And then I also own Confident Connotations, which is a spinoff of CC America, where I am able to sell inspirational products to support the Confidence Centers of America brand. So it's a vision of mine that I've had since 2010, and it took about 10 years to get started. I have been working behind the scenes, though, throughout that time, as Tammy knows, with getting my LLCs formed, getting designs created, updating my website, just doing all of the work behind the scenes while also holding down a 9-to-5 job. And as Tammy mentioned, my husband, Rodney Jordan, he and I got married in 2016. So I have joined Tammy since he joined the show, essentially. And we welcomed our daughter in 2018. So although I don't have as much time, I still have been able to find my own way to give back and actually do what I set out to do, which is really help build people up, mind, body, and spirit, through podcasting, through training, through dance, through the arts. So I'm just here to inspire. And you'll probably learn from my life language that that's not a surprise. So training, inspiration, all of those things I feel like fell very well within my wheelhouse and also my personality.
Right.
So that is me in a nutshell.
I love how you said, well, I'm gonna piggyback off of a few things that you said. 10 years to get started, but you found your own way. And I think that's so, a couple of things, a couple of reasons that becomes important because so often we think that it should come quick and that businesses unfold overnight and we see the final I guess the finals of that and we don't really see how much work people have put in behind the scenes and how many years they've went through the ups and downs, the 9 to 5, and still trying to be inspired about their own purpose, passion, and their mission and their business. So
Right.
for somebody out there who's looking and thinking, or maybe perhaps giving up or not really feeling like you are doing what you're supposed to do or the passion that you have, don't quit. but more importantly, find your own way. And that's coming from Tomeria's words and introducing herself. Find your own way. So often, you guys, we look for things to validate us, to give us permission, and we look outwardly. We look at people, we look at things, we look at our jobs, our titles, or lack thereof, and we get caught up in someone else's way or on someone else's journey. I heard, I think Iana said this, and I hope I'm right. OPP, other people's problems and other people's purpose. And
Mm.
so often we get caught up in that. So I would like to say, because we've worked for quite a while, Tomeria and I'm going to share this too, because so often as women, Tomeria, and I've said this to you, um, Rodney and I have a special friendship. Like I see Rodney as my brother, and I'd like to think that he sees me as his sister. But that happened before Tomeria. I believe that happened before I met you through Rodney, so to speak. If that is that
Yes.
so, and so often that click does not work. Like, and so often you find people asking, well, can a lady and a man be friends and things like that? And I certainly say yes, but I've never felt any kind of shade from Tamaria. I've never felt like she doubted me in any way. It really felt like as soon as I met her, I gained a sister. Like literally, like I felt like, okay, this is cool. Like it's so cool because again, so often it does not happen because there's such a level of distrust amongst us, and rightfully so because not everything works out the way that it has worked for with us. But
Right.
to add to that, it was my intention, and I felt more of my responsibility to make sure that Tamaria felt comfortable with me. And if she had not, I'm sorry, but Rodney would have had to we would have had to do it a different way because as my love for him as my brother, then I want his relationship, his wife to be happy and for her needs to be met. And I would not want to interfere with that by any means. And I think that it's important that we look at it that way because so often we want for ourselves or for those who we love, we want different or we expect different because of who they are to us, rather than wrong is wrong and right is right. So I wanted to start out that way. And I wanted to also just thank you for allowing me to be a part of your growing because in also important, you guys, in seeing her grow. She said I'm her life coach, but you guys, I learn from everyone that I sit down with. Why? Because I'm also doing life. Being a life coach doesn't make me absent from challenges, from my own hell, um, from my own life interruptions. It does not do that. So I have to learn and do every day to practice what I preach. And I don't always get that right. So when I coach Mary or anybody else, I'm also being coached. I'm learning. So thank you. Thank you. And a special thank you for doing it in this way, in this platform, because it's like opening yourself up to the world and say, this is where I am, this is where I was, and this is where I'm going, and this is how I'm doing it. And with this information. So thank you for
You're
that.
welcome. Thank you
Um,
as well.
you are so welcome. You are so welcome. So you took the assessment, and you guys, this is unpacking Tamaria, and what we mean by unpacking is that she took the assessment, and now we've had a couple of sessions with her and with Rodney as well. And so because we do the couples coaching as well. And so with unpacking, it's kind of like, who is she? How is she wired? What does she need and how does she need it? But more importantly, what does she need from herself and how does she need it? And so it's like seeing yourself on paper. It's like um, writing your own autobiography, um, but not writing it like someone that knows you
Mm.
so well writes it. And for me, I remember describing it like I felt if it was God's letter to me. That's how that's how it opened me up, the questions it answered that I did not know I had. So, Tamara, you took the assessment. In your words, what did you initially get from it, and what were your initial thoughts, I guess, your aha moments in learning about it?
That's a great question. So as a person who was always looking to develop, which is not ironic that I'm in training and development, I was always taking assessments because I wanted to know how I was wired. I wanted to know what made me click. I wanted to know what types of jobs I would thrive in. And so I tended to take assessments on a regular basis, primarily like Myers Briggs. On one of my jobs, I took a different assessment. So I was always going online, searching like the Jung personality test to try to figure out more about myself. So when you mentioned the impact that life languages had on you, I was like, oh, you know what? I'd be interested in that because as someone who wears my heart on my sleeve, sometimes I find that I end up getting hurt more because I trust people until they give me a reason not to trust them. Whereas some people might be more skeptical, I'm more open. I'm an open book. I probably share way too much information and I'm a talker. So I said, you know what? This is all about communication. And you shared how it was really transformative for you
Mm-hmm.
back when I was listening to the Butterfly Evolution show, which I still listen to. And so I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds like a really good assessment. Let me take it. And so I took it and I was really impressed with the amount of information that I read and also how spot on it was for me. So as I read it, I said, oh my gosh, this is so me in a lot of ways. But the one thing that I've learned through assessments, because one of my roles over the course of my career was talent management lead, and in that role I actually administered assessments and provided feedback to coach associates as well as managers. And so in that role I learned that although these may be our natural tendencies, it may not always be how we respond to life. So when
Okay.
I had a chance to take the life languages assessment, I felt like it was able to give me a broader picture of who I am and also letting me know how I operate, how I may tend to operate, but then also knowing how I may tend to operate allows me to respond to life better because
Mm-hmm.
I don't always have to operate in certain ways.
Right. Right. It's like you made me something you said made me think about a former coworker and friend at that time said to me about reading books. She said reading books was like getting a chance to meet people that you would never meet and go places that you might never get to visit. And so
Yeah.
with the assessment, it's like you're with yourself, um, and you do things, but you don't really think about how you do them or why you do them. And so with the assessment, it answers that question of not if you're smart, but how you are smart. Not if you respond to life, but how you respond to life. And so I think it's easy. It's not, I think we do get caught up in just doing and being.
Right.
And much of that is based on, if not all, is based on, of course, how we were raised and who we were raised by, and what they bought from their childhood. So sometimes we just find ourselves doing things like we talk about the trash can out of habit, but we don't know to ask that question because it's such a part of us, or we've made it such a part of us. I remember Rodney saying on the show that we often think that we are who we've become,
That's
and
true.
that has stuck with me because the person that we think we have become is most times are associated with pain, with the
Mm,
things that has happened to us, experiences, and just how we saw people do in life when we were raised. And so
right.
to get this is just a phenomenal tool. So for you guys who are listening, Tamari is an introducer now, and we'll talk a little bit about that later, but we're going to unpack her, and tell you a little bit about what the assessment did for her and how, and help you, that will help you understand the assessment and her a bit better as well. So the way we're going to do this is, we're going to just put the information there on the screen, and I'll share a few forms with you guys as well. So be patient because I'll have to bring them up as you see the pop up Bluff City Leadership and bluffcityleadership.com. You see the CC America podcast information scrolling down. That is, if anyone wants to take the assessment, that is the website that you would need to go to because we're going to have you go and take it from Tomeria's website, and that will help her as introducer to the life language assessment.
And
So, any
actually, I have
questions, Tomeria?
yes, and actually, I have one quick update. So the podcast website is where they can listen to the show, and the CC America website, I can post it in the chat. It's ccamericallc.com
Okay,
for the
I just put
personality
it there,
assessment.
and I'll add it to scroll down. And if you'll put it in the chat, that'll be great.
Okay, I will do it right now.
Okay. And you guys will also see it,
Oh, perfect.
ccamericallc.com scrolling at the bottom there. But she's going to put it in the comment section as well.
Yes, I'm going to drop it in there. It's under the personality, the assessment section. So I just dropped it in the chat.
Super, super. And for those of
Thank
you who are
you.
listening, if you want to comment, you can comment right. If you're listening from Facebook Live, you can comment from there and we will see it here and we will kind of stop in between and check it and answer your questions or share your comments as well. So let's take a look. Let me get back up to the top here. So Tomeria again took the assessment. The assessment is basically about understanding yourself and others, um, help you be more successful in communicating, all of your communicating, all of your communication. And then it's also to help you build on your positive character qualities while working to overcome non productive character qualities. We ask you to do this, or with this information, if you activate this information in your life, it will help you change your relationships. And can I get an amen that we all agree our relationships are suffering? There is a change that need to be made. We have marriages failing. We have family dynamics, meaning families are at odds. It seems everywhere I turn and everywhere I go, relatives are just not having those meaningful relationships. So all the knowledge that we gain about ourselves should be applied or action allow us to put action to that so that we are not just focusing on our character, our positive character qualities. And sometimes that's a challenge for people. So this assessment helps you to identify what are your some of your positive character qualities. But in addition to that, what are those non-productive qualities in your life that you can work on, that you can build from in hopes of changing the dynamics of your personal and professional relationships? So, Tamaria, how has it helped you with your relationships to see relationships in a different light?
I will say that it helped me by being able to. I remember the first time I read the assessment and it said professionalized, not personalized. And I was like, wait, I do take things personal sometimes because I wear my heart on my sleeve. So I feel more. I'm very empathetic. So I remember reading that and thinking, that makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways, just because I am the person who wants to know how much people care. I'm the person who says the world should be fair, but we see that it's not. And
Mm-hmm.
I get frustrated by that because I want to make things fair. I have a strong desire to understand other people. I am very open to other people's opinions, but other people may not be as open to mine. So when I read the assessment, I was like, yeah, this sounds about right. This is definitely me. And
And to flip to
it's
that,
helping.
right. And to flip to that, once you learn about yourself and realize that this is just how you respond to life. Again, not if you, but how you.
Right.
So if you realize that you have a way that you respond to people, places, things, circumstances, and love, that the people that we are mostly offended by are other people in
Right.
general, they also have ways that they respond to life. And so when
Right.
you give them that grace and that mercy or whatever to be themselves and the right to respond in the way that works best for them, you're less offended because you realize,
So true.
wow, I respond with my heart. he or she may respond with action or with their head. So give them time and space to catch up. But once you become healthy, be okay with going down and meeting them
Yes.
where they are. And so what I mean by that, you guys, is we are all seven languages. So there are seven life languages, and they're broken into three intelligence categories, and that is kinetic, emotive, and cognitive. But again, everyone is all seven languages. It's just more about their preferred language, communication style.
Mm,
It's like Spanish. And we'll tell you more about the Spanish deal later. But just remember that there are seven life languages, and we're all seven, but they're all seven also broken into three intelligence categories: kinetic, emotive, and cognitive. And again, you'll see this here on the screen in yellow. So, as you heard me say earlier, it isn't if we are smart, but how we are smart. And to add to that, it's not if we respond or react to life, but how. And then it goes deeper. Why? Why do you respond this way? So keep those
right.
in mind. And what we're going to do is go through the languages and the intelligence categories. We're going to go through those here. So let me skip down. The first, and I mentioned that there's three categories and seven language. The first one that we're going to go through is our kinetic language. And this is the person or the people who generally, and we say generally because, again, we're all seven languages. And the more healthy we become and learn these languages in pure form, the better we can communicate, the less we are offended, the
Right.
more we can speak someone else's language when they need us to, rather than expecting them to speak our language all the time. So the three categories is three categories, and we're going to start with the kinetic. Now, Tomeria, with the kinetic category is one with our action. For you, Tomeria, I don't know if you have your assessment out in front of you, but your third language is your action, I believe, and I'll
I can
verify
pull it
that.
up.
But your I have it here, but the kinetic category is are those who respond with action first. You've heard Tamaria talk about she deals with life with a heart, and
I
her
do.
her assessment report revealed this. Like it revealed that she is a responder language, and this is not of the kinetic category. It's an emotive category. So she feels. She responds to life with feelings and to people with feelings. And you guys know where, or maybe you don't. This is probably a personal thing that I'll say. I really believe that people who deal with life with their feelings are so misunderstood and sometimes so mistreated, because the world really doesn't, it seems to me that the world does not respond until there's really an emergency. And
Right.
that's and I say emergency with people like she can walk around with her heart all day, but until her heart is broken, it may not get a response. And that's just
Sadly.
sadly, yeah. And it's just the world, really. We're in a different day and time. Perhaps maybe it was like this before, but just I was maybe out of touch with it. But it just really seems like we wait until we have to respond to
Right.
someone's feelings. So again, the kinetic languages, and Terry, if you want to add anything just that you may have gotten from anything that I'm on, please stop me and we'll do that.
I did want to mention a couple of things based on what you said. So the first one being that we tend to expect other people maybe to operate in our language and everyone's different. So that is something that I learned that I forgot to mention when you asked the very first question is giving people that grace. But
Mm-hmm.
I find to your later point that we are often misunderstood because we operate with our feelings is so true. People want grace that they don't want to give. And
Wow.
it's like, wait, you want grace, but like I often struggle with this because of my heart and because of my personality. People feel like, oh, I can say whatever to her, I can do whatever to her, and she's just gonna deal with it because she's nice. And even in the workplace, I have been told, I was told this for years, you're too nice, you're too nice. And I'm like, what does that mean? Because you and I both know, Tammy, I will have a difficult conversation. I actually want to have the conversation because I want to clear the air because I care about my relationships. So
Hmm.
I want to talk it out. But it's funny to me that some of the people who will say, I speak my mind, they don't actually like conflict, which is funny to me because they'll say I'm too nice, but I'm okay with conflict. I'm like, all right, let's talk about it. And they're like, wait, I don't want to talk about it. I want to tell you what I think, but I don't want to hear what you have to say.
And often
And
tell you what to do and how to do it and how to think,
yes,
which is why I think oftentimes they don't want the conflict, because sometimes people are so set in their ways or in their way
yes,
until your way is not the way. So
exactly.
interesting point. Interesting point. I love
And
how you said people want grace that they don't want to give, and that people that
no,
speak their mind often don't want the conflict. And you guys, I am all for healthy conflict. I don't feel that we can do
right,
life without conflict, especially if we're embracing people and allowing them to be who they are. That you cannot avoid conflict, but what you can avoid is the way that you approach conflict.
right.
You can maybe I shouldn't say avoid, but you can control that, how you approach it. So great
Very
points,
true.
Tamir. Great points. So that kinetic intelligence, again, these are people who respond to life generally with action first, and so then with their heart or head. The life languages, or the languages for the kinetic intelligence, is mover and doer. And I'm going to look real quick here because I think yours is doer. Your third language is doer. So there are seven. So we're going to get down and tell you what's our first and second. But mover and doer are of the kinetic languages, and they respond to life with their action first. Okay. So imagine, you guys, um, if someone responds, I'll say with their heart, as Tamari has talked about, if she's responding with feelings with her heart, and someone with action just takes action and does not really focus on showing her that they care first, that they just move about and do whatever, that there can be a misunderstanding, and some feelings hurt if she doesn't understand that this person typically acts without thinking. And sometimes we need people to take action, to be prepared to go in a moment's time. Because there can always be people like me that just sit back and think, because you will not be saved, because I'm going to think about all of it before. We'll get to that category later. So the kinetic life language, again, is consists of mover and doer, and some of the characteristics, or what you will find from a mover. And again, this could be some, it could be all. They may not identify with all of this. And just remember that there are seven languages. We are all of them, but no two movers are exactly alike, and no two doers are exactly alike. So you have your mover, which is, you may find them direct, assertive, ambitious, pioneering, courageous, and standard bearers. You have doer, still in the kinetic life language. They're dedicated, observant, diligent, practical, efficient, and responsible. And so Tamaria's, again, third language is doer. And so she will identify with some or all of these: dedicated, observant, diligent, practical, efficient, and responsible. Okay. Anything on that, Tamaria?
It is true. I concur.
Concur.
Um, I do. It's definitely interesting, but it's funny when I think about, like you said, we all will respond at some point with the seven languages. It really just depends on what situation we're in. And I think at the very beginning you talked about our experiences, and I think that does have a lot to do with it. Our
Right.
upbringing, our experiences, maybe major life events. I know for me, something that I went through that was pretty traumatic was the tornado. So how I look at life, how I value life that happened when I was 9 years old. So imagine how that shaped how I am as a person.
Mm-hmm.
So naturally, when I realized the value of life and how quickly life can be taken from you or how blessed we are, I'm not surprised that I respond more with my heart, because I'm like, I can do all these things that really at the end of the day don't matter.
Right.
But how do I make other people feel is really
Right.
important to me, because I
Right.
I realize going through situations, whether it's car accidents or the tornado or different things, I really do care a lot about people and how I
Mm-hmm.
treat them and how they feel,
Mm-hmm.
because I realize that that to me is really important.
Right. I think too, um, also it's important to know, again, I said this, what someone needs and how they need it from you, but make
Right.
sure that what you need, meaning, so if we need, if Tamara responds to people with her heart and she really does care. And so I am truly a believer, and I had to work my way there of making sure that I get what I'm giving. So you have to take care of yourself first.
Hmm.
You have to be that person for yourself. You know, I I just cannot say enough about that, because so often, as I said earlier, we look outwardly and we think that people are going to respond to us the way that we respond to them. So the best thing that we can do is make sure that we respond to ourselves in the same productive, healthy manner as we do to others. Give
Right.
yourself that grace, give yourself that time, make time for yourself. And that is not a selfish act. There's truly a difference between being selfish and taking care of you, meeting your needs, knowing them and meeting your needs and creating boundaries, especially with your heart in a world, in this kind of world that we're in today.
Hmm.
So, especially. So
Yeah,
now
that
we're
was a
getting to,
struggle.
and it's probably, I think it is for many, not all, but even so, back to what you were saying, those people who speak their minds more, most of those people want to avoid conflict, and I say most of those people are truly avoiding the conflict inside, the internal
Hmm.
conflict, because
Yeah.
to deal with conflict, you have to know who you are. You can't just be speaking it. You have to know who
Right.
you are and have some confidence about that and acceptance. And that is the productive character qualities, as we talked about, and the non productive ones. You have to know where you're starting, where you're leaving from to get to where you want to go.
Right.
So the second intelligence or category is emotive, and this is where we're getting into Tomeria's assessment. The emotive category has both Tomeria's first and second life languages. So her first and her primary are of the same intelligence category, and that is the emotive. What you're going to find in the emotive, or the languages you're going to find in the emotive category, is your responder and your influencer. So Tamaria's first language is responder, and her second language is influencer. So she actually responds to life. We have this thing where we go down and we label, feel, think, act, or whatever. So she feels. So both of hers of the same category. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes most times I think I've seen people where they have a feel category, a think category, and then maybe an act category. But all that is saying here is that she feels hard. Her first and her second language is that feeling category, that heart of hearts category. So she is going to respond to people heart, or I'll say feel, and then act. And Tamara, I was re-looking at this again today, and I thought about how Rodney's is think, act. So you are feeling, he's thinking, and now you both act. But, and we're not going to get into Tamara's and Rodney's, but by the time they act, both of them are probably so frustrated because
It's so
she's
opposite.
he's thinking, she needs him to feel, and he needs her to get out of his way and give him time to think. And she's saying, "Don't you see my heart? Don't you feel it?" And by the time they act, their acts can be so self motivated and I need until they miss each other. And we talked about this in their couples coaching as well.
That's so
So,
true.
and
I
I
was
think
like,
that's what
oh
Tomeria
boy.
did when she found out. She laughed like, "Oh my goodness,
I
I've
was
been."
like, this explains a lot. We are completely opposite.
Yeah, yeah. So just imagine that, you guys. That's what it's about: getting an understanding of who you're dealing with. I say this. I
It's so
say this.
true.
I believe this. That there are so many people have called it quits, not because they did not love each other, and I'll say on couples and on themselves as well, but because
Right.
they did not take this time to understand each other's how, why, and
Yes.
the language. Mary, you were going to say something?
It can be a struggle for sure,
Yeah.
especially because it is interesting how we are all different. And
Yes.
like you said, in this world, being a feeler, oftentimes you're getting your feelings hurt and you start to create an exterior shell. And I was really inspired by the interview that you did with Trent
Mm-hmm.
last week
Mm-hmm.
because we have the same first language. And I said, that is so funny because I felt everything he said. I'm like, yeah, after you see how other people operate and it can be harmful to you, then you start to put up a shell where you're like, you know what? I don't want to feel, I don't want to um be compassionate. I don't want to be diplomatic and tactful all the time. I want to say what I want to say too.
Mm-hmm.
But people can't oftentimes handle what they give you because they're not expecting it from people like Trent and I because we're
Right.
the feelers. We're the people who always have to consider other people, or we feel like we have to consider other people. And so it can be tough when they're thinking and you're like, okay, what about my feelings? But then they want you to consider their feelings
Right.
or the doers. So it's interesting for sure how we're
Right.
all how we're all wired.
Intertwining. Right. Right. And I think the best way, you guys, if you need a maybe, I don't know if reason is the word, but think of it as the gift that God gave you to be a person that responds to life with their heart. Because think about it, if everybody was wired to respond with action, we'd be bumping into each other. Or if
True.
everybody was wired to respond with thought, we wouldn't get anything done because everybody be thinking about what needs to be done. So if we start to think about, first of all, if we go inwardly for the things that we need, because the word does say that we were created for a purpose. And so if we were created for a purpose, just like the seeds that we plant, they know to, if we plant collards, they know to give us collards. We don't expect
Right.
anything different. And I think going in inwardly is what we find, because there's a battle inside of us. There's a battle with the person that you think you've become based on life experiences and so forth. There's a battle of that person that God created you to be. And Tamara, you're so right. Responders um, Responder is the only language, and I don't know if I shared this with you, but it's what we called our transparent language. Because, as you said, responders tend to get frustrated with people and with life because they feel like they're being used and abused, and that they're not being taken seriously, or people don't care. That's a proper way, because their filter is, do you really care? And so it's the transparent language, because often a responder will go to their second language. They will live out of that second language because they've shut down in that first language. So um, so something must be going on, because I keep getting disconnected on some of the platforms that we're going to. So it's okay. It's taken care of now. So you
Okay.
guys, again, we're talking. If you're just joining us, and please don't forget to enter your comments. We'll get to those. We'll take a short break and look at our comments in a second here. But we're unpacking Tomeria Jordan, and this is the unpacking based on her taking the life assessment. that she did with Bluff City Leadership and becoming an introducer, meaning that she's introducing this assessment to family, friends, and anybody else who is on that journey or feel the need to start that journey of self. So that's what we're talking about, just giving you a little bit of information about the assessment, what it can do for you, how to make it work, and how to take it as well. So we just finished talking about the kinetic, which is our act category or our intelligence category of action meaning. And so now the emotive, which is Tomeria's first and second language. And again, responder, influencer, and she's in that order. So let's look at the emotive intelligence category. And the emotive is the only category that has 3 life languages, and this will complete the 7 languages. The emotive category or the languages are responder, and the contemplator and producer. So your responder language, and I hope I didn't miss one. No, I didn't. So the Tomeria, again, like we said, is a responder, and her. Let me see. When do you go into your thinking mode here, Tomeria? And I do have it pulled up. I think I'll share
I
that.
have it. I have it up too. I
Okay.
was able to get it up.
Okay. So shape, let's see. Shaper. Tamara, are we looking at your old one? I may be.
I'm looking at my I'm
So your
looking at
new,
the new one, the
yes,
professional profile.
yes. And so I should have said that Tamara actually retook the assessment 2020, was it? And
Yes,
the
and the
first
first
one
time
was
I took it was
2015.
yes.
Okay, so her third language is of cognitive. So I stand corrected there. Her third language is the emotive category. I'm sorry, the cognitive category, which means she thinks there. Okay, so we have act, feel, think. So she is feel, think, and I believe I said feel, act. So we'll change that. And she took the assessment in 2015 originally. Yes. And again in 2020. And the reason why, you guys, because as we grow through life and as you are intentional about changing, so I'm glad that came up. As you are intentional about transforming your life, I'll say transform rather than change, and coming into your own way. Tamaria mentioned that finding her own way. And when you do that, there are internal shifts that happen. There are changes. As you mentioned, people start to say, well, what's wrong? Well, you didn't say it this way. But what they're saying is, what's wrong with you? You're not acting like
Right.
you care anymore. And what it is, because she still cares. She's just finding her own way of how she cares and who gets to take that space, who deserves it, who gets it, who, how to set up those boundaries and how to own what she already owns, because so
Right.
often we give it away, and that leads us to, as I said, that responder language being the transparent language and sending people into their distress flares, which is a whole nother avenue of the assessment, because not only
Mm.
all this information, but you learn to understand when you're going into distress. Okay. So, any questions, any comments, Tamaria?
Not at the moment, but to Tammy's point, I have made a concerted effort to work on like how I respond to life. And it was funny in 2013, I was advised, to guard my heart. And Tammy had mentioned that earlier. I forgot to touch on that, but I see why, because when you don't, and it says in the Bible that the heart, like all of the issues of life flow from that. So if
Mm-hmm.
you don't take care of yourself, like I remember when I read my life language and it said that I am the person who will try to keep peace at all costs. So I may be prone to conflict because I'm trying to resolve it and get everyone back on the same page. The problem is, because of that, I oftentimes will end up sacrificing, the way the assessment put it, my personal comfort for everyone else. So now, to Tammy's point that I'm changing, everyone else is probably feeling what I've been feeling
Yes.
all this time, because now when I speak my mind, if they don't like it, they're like, oh, wait, you're changing. Which for me, I'm like, I'm not doing anything like that's harmful to anyone. I'm not,
You're no longer
being
the
rude.
cost. When you said peace
Right.
at all costs, you're no you decide that, and we should never be, no
I
matter what
love that.
language we are. You should never
Yes.
be the cost. You said peace at all costs, but
Yes.
we should never be the cost. You should always be able to be express yourself, your feelings, and you can never or should never be the cost. It should
Exactly.
be a mutual thing that we should find common ground, even if it's to disagree and still have peace, but never walk away being the cost.
Oh, I
And,
love
and,
that.
and I just think because Jesus took care of all of that, He did that for us. And so when He tells us to guard our heart, when the word says guard your heart, for out of it flows the issues of life, then
Right.
we should set those boundaries. We should never be okay with being the cost. We should not avoid conflict. We should turn over some
Exactly.
tables in the name of Jesus. Like, we should do these things. But so often, I mean, seriously, so often, me guys, me included, so often we're afraid to set those boundaries. We're afraid to say no. We're afraid to find out who we're battling with internally. Like, who is the
It's
person
true.
that keeps me in bondage? What is that thing back in the day? I listened to you talk about the tornado. What is your thing? What is it that you've bought into your adult life? I was doing a coaching session, and the person I was working with just last week was saying, I almost drowned. I almost got bitten by a
Mm.
dog, and I'm like, I get it, but you almost. But now this
You
person is
didn't.
grown and they're still there in the almost. But thank God, learning about herself, growing, and learning how to change and how to be all of these beautiful seven life languages. Tamara, you were going to say something?
Oh no, I was just agreeing.
Okay. Okay.
There's so much, but I'm like, we don't have time for all this unpacking, honey.
I agree. I agree. And we're not going to keep you guys long. Maybe this is a good. I'll tell you what, let me get through this last intelligence language and then I'll check the comments. Um, and I think we've already kind of covered the cognitive category. And these are the people that generally respond to life with, and people and stress and so forth with their thought, with thinking. So head, then their heart or actions or whichever one. And these are the people that are going to be your thinkers. This is me. Um, I have to learn how to get out of my head, you guys. It's really really bad, and I say bad. I should not use that word because again, we need them all. But remember, I am working on those non-productive character qualities, and it's not productive to remain in your thought and in your head. I actually feel like if the faster you can get out of your head and away from those thoughts that are not your own, the better off your decisions will be and life will be as well. So those are your cognitive life languages. The shaper, and a shaper is going to be organized, visionary. Some of these they may identify, and they may not. Organized, visionary, focused, delegating, strategic, and efficient. Tamara, your third language is shaper. And
It's true.
contemplator, inquisitive, reflective, sensitive, peaceful, calm, and complex. I'm a first language contemplator. 98 is my score. We're going to talk about scores a little bit later. So you can see I'm almost just there, 100%. Um, then your producer is our third and final life languages. And again, this is the cognitive intelligence category. And producers are gracious, thoughtful, responsible, philanthropic. I can never say that word. I hope I got it right. And resourceful. So those are the languages. And remember, you guys, we're all seven life languages. We're all the languages. It's just a matter of um, your preference in how you do life or your style, the gift that God gave you. So the communication preferences in the scores, and I'm going to scoot down just a little bit here. Hopefully you can see it all. The communication preference, again, it's your life language, meaning your first, your second, or your third. In your score, your rating, and then we have some other scores that we'll get into our gap, we have the range, and we have our overall intensity. And that's the one that I'm going to talk about today, just for sake of time, we can't give you all of it. But we have scores, which again, I said earlier, no two producers or no two responders are going to be the same because we have scores that make up the people. For example, if you spoke 72% of Spanish and someone else speaks 20% of Spanish, you both know Spanish, but how much you identify and will be able to communicate effectively is in that
Right.
score. So where Tomeria is 72.81 responder, and I have that here, which is high. And then her second influencer, 72.3, which is also high. So much gets into how you are shaped, how you are wired. It's not just your score, it's not just your language. And then, you guys, it's also your experiences, how you see life, how your perception of what has happened to you in your life, by whom and how, and so forth. So, we're going to try to get you guys out of here by 8.
Very
So, I'm going to
true.
slow down just a little bit. I'm going to check the comments. Let's see. Feel, think. Okay. I think you were just piggybacking for the people out there. And now we know that you're feel, because I was going off of your first assessment. So you're
Okay.
think. Okay. So not feel, act like I said. Okay. So let me get back, you guys.
But that was because of the effort to switch it. I wonder what the difference would be if we were to look at the two. But yeah, that was the intentional act of working on myself.
Right. And that's the beauty of this. We can actually merge your old profile or your first profile and your current one and make you one person and see
Oh,
what that gives you. And it doesn't mean, because that's how, like we did with your couples report, where it's you
yes,
and Rodney as individuals and you as a couple. Your first language changes as a couple. And so that helps couples understand each other better because they see themselves individually and then, okay, who are we as we are working to become one? What's our go-to language as a couple? And so
that makes
we
sense.
could merge you just for the fun of it to see what that brings as your first language or your
Because it's
primary language.
yeah, it's interesting. I literally switched between doer and shaper. Shaper just moved up, doer moved down, and the percentages increased, which is
Right.
interesting.
Interesting, for sure, for sure. And I think your third language um, moved because doer and now shaper.
Yeah,
So
I don't know
I
what
don't
that
know.
means. I just know that it switched real like that's what I noticed. It's
Meaning
like,
the way
oh, it
that
did
the
switch.
think, act, that it just meant
Oh,
that
I went
you,
from act to thinking more. But I wonder if I
right.
did that because of who I'm married to, being a contemplator. Like, okay, maybe I need to think more about what I say or how I
Huh,
respond. I wonder
that's
because
interesting.
he's a thinker. He's a
Right.
thinker. And because I care about relationships and preserving them, I wonder
You,
if, I don't
that
know.
could be.
It
That
was
could
just a
be. That
thought.
could be. Or you may sometimes as we transform, you guys, transforming is like it's almost becoming someone else. It really is like if you really get deep for those who are going the journey, um, and maybe if you are, I'd love to hear how it's working for you because I shared Mary, and I think you might have been on that night. Sometimes I feel so different until I almost want to change my name and like I feel like I am totally this. I am not who and what I used to be, and I certainly don't respond to life the way that people were used to me doing so. And intentional, a lot of it, but I do believe that sometimes we are forced to transition, to transform. Um, I don't know if all of us are, but I feel like a great number of us are pushed because again, I believe that we came here for a purpose and that what we need is in us, but we become someone else for someone else or for something else. And then the battle is within. And so sometimes we think we're fighting people, but we're fighting ourselves. We're fighting that purpose and that passion. And I promise you guys, this just taking the assessment for me, it was it was life changing. Life changing. I would not have did this for this long um, if it had not, and if I didn't want everybody that I came in front of to be changed. I had someone. I know we're getting a little bit off of here, but I talked to a marketing firm a couple of weeks ago, and I think I shared this with you, Tomeria, and they told me that I wasn't charging enough. And she asked if I was, because I was looking for somebody, I took just thought, let me look up some different ways, just trying to step out of my own way. And she said, "Are you fearful of charging more?" And it was significantly more. And I said these words. I said, "I never want my message to get in the way. I never want someone to have to choose or say, I can't do this because I can't afford it. I
Right.
don't want to get in front of the message that God has given me and make it about money. Um, Not saying that I don't need money to live, but the money she was saying that I should charge, I and I hate to say this, but you guys, I really am there. Like it just seems so not real. It just doesn't. And I'm not devaluing the work. I'm putting
Right.
more value on the message and the mission. I just believe God will make room for me in the way that it needs to be made without me robbing someone's bank, just so that I can do less of this. I'd like to
That's
do
fair.
more of this, more, not to make so much that I have all this time. I value the time, but I value the message and the gift that God has put on my heart and the work that He has put me here to do. And I would not be here doing it had it not been for my own challenges, my own
You
dysfunction,
said
bondage, my own pain. I would not be here doing this. So I'm talking to somebody saying, don't let your pain go in vain. I mean, don't think that because you went through something or you're going through something, your story is God's glory.
right.
God's story is your story. So, and it ain't always pretty, you guys. And I said it ain't always pretty, but it is real. That's real, right, Tamara?
It's true.
That's real. So let's skip down a little bit. I want to get to the meat of the intensity score. And I've mentioned you guys there's language scores, and I'm going to share this with you. Let me share my screen here, and that may help us move forward just a little bit quicker. If I do that, share screen, and easiest to monitor. All right, share screen. All right, so Chrome tab and short form. All right, so you guys should be seeing, and Tamara, are you seeing your short form?
Yes.
Okay, so as we talked earlier, Tamara is responder, influencer, shaper, doer, producer, contemplator, mover. So these are those seven languages. This is her communication preference, meaning her primary language is responder. But remember, we said responders typically, this is our transparent language, and they typically, their go to is their second language. And for her, it is an influencer. You see here that her language scores are pretty close here. 72.81, that's a high rating. 72.3 or 30 is a high rating as well. Then we have our gaps, and we won't get into that, but basically it's just the distance between each language as the descending order. We have our range and we have our overall intensity. And these scores are identified or defined in the report and so on. So the one that I really wanted to touch on tonight is the overall intensity score. And Tamaria has an 80.55. Now I'm going to flip back over and I'm going to, let's see, take this off. Let me stop sharing here. So Temeria's overall intensity score is high. And what that means, I want to get down here and just let you see what that means. So your intensity level is high. Your intensity score reveals the strength, energy, and passion you have for communication. The higher your intensity, the higher your drive to communicate, and the more effort you put into it. High intensity often means you will fight for your opinion to be considered and to exercise control, whether directly or indirectly. You will do more to maintain communication and relationships. I'm going to go back to that first one. You will do more to maintain communication and relationships. You may also be more prone to conflict. People with high intensity tend to draw attention. People with low intensity generally do not compete to be heard, although they may have to. Although they may have a lot to say, and I want to go to that second screen, or they may have valuable contributions to make, and they're sometimes overlooked or ignored. But imagine, as we were talking about, Tomeria being married to a contemplator. Now, look at her overall intensity score. So we could have a responder with a low intensity score, and they're going to be totally opposite. And that's what I meant by the scores help make up the person or help them to see how they do life. So I'm going to go back up to this one. Indirectly or directly, as it says here, that she's going to exercise the right to be heard. How is she going to do it, directly or indirectly? And imagine her dealing with a person who acts, a person who thinks. So what is she going to be doing trying to get their attention? How is she going to show up? How is she going to try to see if they really care? So this is what she learns about herself with this assessment. This is how she turns those non-productive character qualities into productive ones. If she knows I'm dealing with a thinker, I will allow him time to think. If she knows I'm dealing with someone who acts, he's acting, but I know he still cares. This is just his language. He needs to act first. Now, as actors, as thinkers, we need to learn our non productive character qualities as well. So, for those of you who are listening, you find yourselves in conflict with those who you love. Imagine how valuable it would be just to know how,
Mhm.
not if they do life, but how, so that you can be less offended, that you can give them grace, that you can value. We didn't get into the filter, the need, the key character strength, and the driving passion. This assessment gives you these things as well. Think
Right.
about knowing how you perceive or receive ingoing and outgoing communication. How do you receive it? Tim Aries is, do you really care?
Exactly.
The way to get Mary is show her that you care. So you guys, there's so much. We passed our hour. There's so much more to this that makes Tamara who she is, and all those who have taken the assessment. And I really want to go over one more thing, Tamaria. And did you have anything? And these are the essential qualities to develop, because we talked about the non-productive things as
Right.
well. So the assessment gives everyone two essential qualities to develop based on their language. And you brought one of them up.
Mhm.
Professionalize, don't personalize.
Yeah,
You brought one
that
of
was the
those
one
up.
that I remember. Yeah. And I just said, okay, in the back of my mind in the workplace, I'm always thinking about it. Like, okay, let me not take this personal. They probably didn't mean it that way. Let me take a step back. I'm always taking a step back to assess the situation.
Right.
So back when I took this in 2015, I worked with some very opinionated individuals who were okay with saying however they felt, but I noticed they could dish it, but they couldn't take it. But I realized, I said, well, to your point, I can't always be the cost. And so I
Exactly.
just started saying, you know what? If I'm uncomfortable, I'm going to speak up. And I used to say, if I'm uncomfortable, we're all going to be uncomfortable. So I'm going to just speak my mind. Of course, as an influencer, tactfully and with diplomacy, but I am going to speak up.
And um, I'd like to say this too. It's about being whatever language you speak it in a healthy manner, in a healthy
Right,
way. And the more you find, and I'll go back to your words, to Mary, the more you find your own way, the more you find your own way and become comfortable in that finding and the route that God has put you on, the less offended you are. You instantly know when you've turned down the wrong street, a one-way
right,
street. You know that you turned left and that you should have turned right when you find your own way. And sometimes even if you feel like you've turned the wrong way, um, you get it. Like sometimes you just have to keep going. Sometimes you have the strength to turn around right then and right there. So it's really
right,
you guys about, there are two things that we want to leave you guys with, and I'm going to turn it over to Tomeria to give out her information again. What do you need and how do you need it?
right,
What do you need and how do you need it? Finding your own way will help you answer those questions. And then, are you healthy enough or ready to say, this is what I need and this is how I need it, without thinking that that is a selfish act,
right.
without thinking. And those who love you will meet you there.
So
And those
true.
you love, you will meet them there with your hands out saying, what do you need from me and how do you need it? Because it's not just about them answering those questions for us, but it is about, what do you need from me and how do you need it? And
Right,
then becoming one, which is the merging of the two reports. Becoming one. And if it's not merging two reports, then merge the person that your fight is with the most. That is the internal person. That is the one within. That is the one that God has created versus the one that you think you've become. And all
right.
based on the world, the things, and all the other stuff. That is not enough, you guys, because if it was, we have a lot of so-called rich people who are miserable.
So
So all
true.
those things don't answer the question for you. There's something internally that you need, and there's a way that you need it, and those things have to be dealt with. So, Tamaria, I know we've left a lot off here, out. I guess I should say it. Typically takes a couple of hours to really unpack each person, you guys, because this assessment is so. It's a God thing. It is a God thing. It was actually
Right.
written by a couple that had lost their marriage, and this man was so gung ho about getting his family back together.
Mm,
And this is where that came from. He said, I knew she loved me and I loved her. So what would make this marriage fall apart to this degree? And he went to God.
mm,
And so these seven languages, the seven, you think about the gifts of the spirit, you think about those. For those of you who are listening, I do life coaching, I do seminars based on character based communication. That is your most effective communication. And I just think of character being from the heart, from the heart. So you brought up guard your heart, Mary. If your heart
right,
if you're not taking care of your heart, out of it flows the issues of life.
right.
So look at the issues that you're having in your life and the peace that you have or not, or you do not have. So, Tamaria, will you tell everybody that may have joined us late how what you do, how they can reach out to you, how they can find your show, how to take the assessment from your site, and anything else you want to share about the assessment, what you got from it, anything before we end?
Okay. I would like to say again, thank you for doing this. And for anyone who is on the fence and debating on whether or not they should take it, I think you definitely should. It's very beneficial. Like, I love how they tell you what your personal motto is, what your color is. And it's ironic because when I look at my assessment, Tammy, I don't know if you noticed, but my podcast, I selected colors ironically that align with my life language, not even realizing it. I looked up what
Oh,
the colors meant. So if you look at my logo for CC America, for anyone who's joining, it stands for Confidence Centers of America. My colors are violet and turquoise. Now, ironically, my first language, the color is violet, the responder. So if you've been seeing many of my podcast advertisements lately, it's bright yellow and purple. Bright yellow is the color for influencer. So subconsciously, I selected the colors, not even realizing it. I selected it based on what I wanted to convey. So for my podcast, the website is ccAmericaPodcast.com. I wanted to help others get mentally fit through stories of faith, inspiration, and transformation. That literally, I'm influencing, I'm using my heart, I'm inspiring people. I was like, this is so funny that this is the path I chose, even with regard to training. So the assessment has been really helpful because it lets me know how I tend to respond, but it also gives me tips on ways that I can be not necessarily a better person, but how I can, what opportunities I have. So to Tammy's point, like not being the cost, not allowing everyone else to dictate how I feel about myself or what I do with my time or what I do with my treasure is really okay. What is comfortable for me? Like, don't try to protect people at all costs. I can still help and protect people, but that's what Jesus died for, as Tammy stated. Like, that's not my role. I am out here thinking I can save the world, and realistically, no one can. So I think the assessment helped put things in perspective for me, where I realized, you know what? There's a lot more to this than the naked eye can see. And if I realize where I tend to come from, I can also realize what I need to work on. And so
Right.
through the conversations with Tammy and also through reading the assessment multiple times, I've even shared it with my managers in my last two jobs. I was like, here you go. Here's my assessment. You want to learn more about me? Here you go. As Tammy said, the responder is one of the most transparent. Not a surprise because I want to communicate.
Okay.
So the CC America was created for the purpose of inspiring the lives of others through service, dedication, and faith. As Tammy mentioned, I am an introducer because I really do believe in this assessment, and I believe in what Tammy is doing because she is literally saving relationships and marriages and helping people understand themselves better. So you can access the link from ccAmericaLLC.com. It's under the mind section, personality profiles. There's a link. I also put it in the chat. And then if you're interested in listening to the CC America podcast, I know that you will be inspired. Tammy has been a guest on the show. I've interviewed a lot of awesome people, both women and men who have a testimony and who are really inspiring individuals. So again, that website is ccAmericaPodcast.com. And then I also have a product line that is all based on inspiration as well. I call it Confident Connotations because when you think of connotations, it's not necessarily what's said, it's what a word may connotate. And
Mhm.
so the products are meant to spark a conversation. It's meant to give you an opportunity to communicate. Go figure. And I'm in the 80th percentile for wanting to communicate. So it's not ironic that I would create a product line that encourages communication. So everything, as we've talked through this tonight, I realize it's all connected. To other people, they may not understand it, but to Tammy's point earlier in the show, it's not about that necessarily. It's about me walking and being in my lane. It's about me bearing the fruit that God has given me to bear. And literally earlier today, I said I was going to create a post of someone driving down the road and put in "Stay in your lane." I'm not trying to be, as Tammy said, OPP. That Iyanla said, I don't want other people's purpose and I don't want other people's pain. So I'm going to stay in my lane. Oh, I like that.
Hey, I
It
like
rhymes. So I'm not
that. We're
down with
gonna remember that.
OPP. Look, Tammy, I'm not down with
I'm
OPP.
not down with
I'm
OPP.
down with you know me.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you knowing you. Hey, and you
Exactly.
knowing you. So, we tend to judge that which we don't understand. And those who we don't understand.
Right.
And I'll say that again, we tend to judge that which we do not understand and those that we do not understand, you guys. So all this really is about effective communication, which is communication from your heart. What do you
Yes.
need and how do you need it from others, but also what do they need and how do they need it from you? Much of what we continue to go through, even as it relates to race, marriage, disconnect in professional and personal relationships, is more about communication than we think. And that communication, if we're willing, like Mary talked about the conflict, if we get to a point where we're willing to sit down in the hot seat and get hot with an agreement that we're going to get up and have a peaceful relationship, even if we do not disagree. The only thing that can bring that, I know you got to have, I'll say for me, I got to keep some God in me to stay balanced. I'll say
Right.
this. If I didn't love God and know that He loved me and created me, you guys would not stand a chance with me. And I mean, guys, but people, you would not stand a chance with me because I'm just kind of over it. And the only thing is keeping me leveled and sane is my love for God and who He created me to be, and that gift within me. So much we don't understand people. We don't understand culture, and we don't. If when we don't understand that, we don't understand the Creator, because now you're saying what He created is not good. Yet you
Right.
tell me that what that He created and all was good. So there's so much we can go. I know we're straying off, but it comes back to not how you are, not if you're smart, but how you're smart. Not if you will respond to life or react to life, but how and why.
Right.
Okay, so
It's so true.
we've given you the information. Thank you guys for listening to Mary. I cannot thank you enough again for just trusting me to help you through this phase of life. And I'll say just as much as you think I help you, you help me as well in so many ways. You've really inspired me just with all of this. I've just tried new things because of things I've seen you do.
Oh,
Um,
thank
and so
you.
really, like really, that I mean, just like, whew. So, but thank you, and you guys listen to her show. She's had some motivating people on there, and you have to keep yourself motivated and surround yourself with the things that you need as you find your way. The things that you need will be on that way. They will be on your journey.
It's so
So
true.
if you feel displaced and misplaced, you might be on somebody else's OPP, right?
Exactly. Focus
Or
on
their way.
focus on you. So
Yeah,
AKA say replace OPP with me. Focus
exactly.
on me. Like if you
Exactly.
focus on yourself, you don't have time to really. And I noticed that, Tammy, and you told me when I first started the podcast, because I've been telling you since probably 2015 that I was going to do this. That was when I first designed the
Yep.
well, actually I designed my first
The
t-shirt for
logo
Confident Connotations
and logo
2013.
too.
Yeah, I got the
Didn't you?
logo. Like I've had so many iterations of the logo. It's just crazy. And I thought CC America was going to be one brand, and it ended up being different aspects of the same brand, but the message is still the same. It's still inspiration. But I remember you told me that I was going to probably learn from doing this as well. So the
Mm-hmm.
guests that
Yeah.
come on the podcast have inspired me in so many ways. I'm grateful for every single guest that has been on. And Tammy's been on with me a couple of times because I learn, and to Tammy's point, I get inspired, but I notice now that I'm in my own lane,
Mm.
nothing stops me. I was up in the middle of the night. I was inspired. I was doing some stuff that I wanted to do, and it didn't feel like work. It's something that you will keep going. You'll keep thriving if that is your purpose. But if you're trying to focus on someone else's purpose and you're trying to copy and do what they do, if
Right.
your heart's not in it, you will get tired. You'll get burnt out because it's not you. So
Right.
I
And if you're
encourage
purpose
everyone
blocking too,
to be
I think,
them.
yeah, right. And if you are not willing to share your gifts, because there's enough room in the gift of you. So this is still about the
Exactly.
life language. Like if you're not okay with sharing, don't, I say this, I say this, I say this. There is a KFC. Wherever you see a KFC, you're going to see a Popeyes. You're going to see a church. You're going to see now Bojangles. You guys, they all sell chicken
They
and
do.
somehow they are thriving. So you got to learn. I heard this, Tomeria, this might have come from you. Um, Vibe with your tribe. Did that come from
I no,
something?
I
I
don't.
don't
That
know.
one wasn't me, but I like it.
Somebody, I don't know. I hear so much and listen to so much, you guys, but you and that's just there's so many people like chicken, but some of them like Popeyes, some of them like
Right.
Bojangles. So if you are a life coach and I can help you, guess what? I'm gonna help you because there's been some
Exactly.
people that I've said, you know what, I can't help you, and I just can't. But it
That's
doesn't mean
fair.
another coach may not have that itch that they need, that scratch for their itch.
Exactly.
Because there are some people that I just I'm mentally, because I just can't. And that's okay. Thank
Right.
God for many different styles of coaching. And so
Exactly.
I need to be able to say, I can't, but I know someone that will be a great fit for you and your situation and where you're going and what you're looking for. That may be a bit too to the left for what you need. Um,
Right.
so don't PB purpose block. We're gonna create a lot of things today
I
to
never even
Mary.
thought of, I never even thought about it that way, but it's true because I'm like, the Bible says that there's many branches, but I think what hurts my heart is when people feel like they have to do what everyone else is doing or
Right.
they're not doing anything. And
And it's
I've had this
easy to get caught up
conversation
in
with
that.
people, right?
It's
I'm
easy
like,
though.
it is, but in my mind, I'm like, what you're doing is important too. But because they don't see the success other people are seeing, people devalue themselves. And that bothers me because I'm like, you don't have to be like me. You don't have to do what I'm doing. Like, you do what you're supposed to do, and everything will work out. Like, to your point, Tammy, it'll just flow. The people will come to you. The people that you're supposed to meet will be in your circle. The relationships you're supposed to build, the connections you're supposed to make, they'll all be there. So to Tammy's point, it's a lot of life coaches, but maybe she's not the right one, but maybe you are. But if you're trying to be someone else, you won't be able to be the person that the other person needs because you're not walking in who you are. You're trying to
Hmm.
be someone else. So I encourage everyone. And I think that's the place where I am now, where I'm like, I am Tomeria. Like, I don't
Mm.
have to be like anyone else. On the job, when they said you were too nice, for a period, I was trying to figure out, what
What
does
is
that mean? And how do I change? How do I not be so nice? Maybe if I smile less, maybe if, and I was like, you know what? Bump this. If I have to do all that, then I don't need that job.
Have you ever
I
thought about if
literally,
people ever told you're too mean? Why is it
no,
easier? Have you like so we
because
have
it's
to
easier to
really
tell me that
right.
because I won't
And just
respond in their
imagine that.
mind.
Imagine that. You're too nice. But you have people that are just outright cruel and evil and no one ever says
Disrespectful.
anything. And
But
so
because they can't, they feel like, oh, that they know that person's going to
they're
give them conflict,
right.
but they're like, wait a minute, it's going to be a conflict they don't want, or they know they're not going to like that message, but they know someone like me. Oh, you know what? She's nice. I can say it to her because maybe she won't bite my head off. Maybe I
Mm,
should. But they, in their mind, they have, it's almost like the unconscious bias in their mind. You think about the people in the workplace who get away with just being rude, disrespectful.
right.
No one bothers them. And this is across the board in any workplace. No one bothers the people who who are difficult to work with.
Mm-hmm.
But the people who others feel like they can say something to, they do. But the people that they feel like they can't, or the people that they feel like won't be responsible or won't respond, they let them go. They just say that's how they are.
That's how
So
they are.
now how I feel is I'm just who I am. So the same way everyone else can say this is just who I am, I'm just who I am. So accept it, take it or leave
I
it.
think finding your way helps you find your voice too. And
It
not only
does.
helps you find it, it helps you be able to communicate that voice in a healthy way because it's
Right.
also not what you say, how you say it, and when. So being I dislike the professional word in our life language because I don't look at professional in that same manner. I think professional to me are healthy people, healthy,
Exactly.
emotional. people who have learned how to become who they inspired to be and were created to be. Because
Exactly.
again, you can have unhealthy professional people. And I believe this is
Right.
why we're seeing so much in the world today as it relates to violence in the workforce and things like that,
It's
because
sad.
we are not, and I'm not condoning this, but you guys, most of the people that are those people that need to be walked out are the last people to be walked out. Where you get people over here that try so hard, they try to be heard, they try to be nice, and it gets to a point where you simply just feel like nothing matters anymore and you don't matter. And so I'm here to tell you that you do. And the better and the quicker you can find your own way. I love that, Tomeria. I don't know why we keep going back to what you said, but that you can find your own way
Right.
and know where you're coming from and where you're going and have that the directions and the plan. Boy, the less offended you are, the I want to say the less conflict, but you're going to have it, but
Right.
you will know how to respond to it and not react to it.
Oh, I
Respond,
like that.
medication thing.
Respond versus react.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
It is so this is good. So for anyone listening, now you see why this assessment is so helpful because it really has helped me to be
yes.
able to professionalize versus personalize. I still have my moments because I'm a feeler, but I do try to think about, did the person really mean this? And it's with regard to family, friends, workplace. Like, let me take a step back. And then if I need clarification, Tammy has helped me with this. I just asked for it. So, am I understanding you correctly when you say X? Is this what you mean?
Yes.
I
Yes.
just want to be clear because if this is what you mean, you are going to get a different response. If I feel
Exactly.
like you are trying to be difficult, whereas if that's not your intent, we can have a different conversation.
Don't you find, or are you finding that people are slowly starting to respect and value you more? And you can,
Yes, because they don't. Before, I don't think they were listening
mm-hmm,
because in their mind, oh, she's nice. I don't have to pay attention to her. Like I speak, but they weren't hearing me. And I was like, I shouldn't have to be brash or rude or disrespectful for you to listen. Just because I prefer to speak with diplomacy and tact, like I shouldn't have to raise my voice for you to listen because then that's a whole other conversation. If I'm raising my voice to get you to hear me, now you've turned away from the real issue. You're still not hearing me because now you focus on my response, not
mm-hmm,
the action that caused the response. So then either way, I feel like I couldn't win for losing because I'm like, well, if I don't respond, that's a problem. If I do respond, that's a problem. So then
yes.
I'm like, I guess it doesn't really matter. So I can just say what I want to say, like everyone else does. And it'll be what it is.
Be what
Because
it
at the end of
is.
the day,
It's
I'm
what it
like,
is.
I can't win. I literally felt like I could not win. Where I'm like, and I think Trent mentioned that you literally feel like you just can't win because it's like you darned if you do, darned if you don't. And I'm like, it should not take me yelling at people or matching their energy for them to hear me. The same way they want me to respect their opinion, they should respect mine. But because I do respect other people's opinions and they know that, they feel comfortable dumping on me because they're like, oh, well, she's
Mm,
responsible. So I can do this to her, but I can't do this to that person who's rude or
right.
who I know is going to give me the same level of a response. So what I learned is I used to take stuff and take stuff and take stuff. I would let people do things to me and I would be like, okay, maybe they didn't mean that. Second time, I'm like, all right now. And then they just keep pushing until I would get to a point where I would get so frustrated. Like now the response you're getting is from multiple times of
You're getting a
taking
reaction,
stabs
really.
at me.
You're really
Right.
getting, by then people are getting a reaction from you,
Right.
not your healthy response,
Exactly.
because
Because at
it's
that point
gone
I'm
on so
tired.
long. Right, right.
Exactly. So now I'm just trying to nip it in the butt, say it when it happens. Like, okay, let me make sure I'm understanding this correctly. Is this what you meant to do?
Hmm. And when you
Or
find
is
your
this what
own
you meant
way,
to say?
Tomeria, you give people, I love find your own way. And I know I've heard it 1,000 times, but when you find your own way, you give people permission to do the same.
Right.
You really do. The more free you are, that it's just going to exude. It's going to be in your presence. It's going to go before you.
Right.
um, when you find your own way, you give people the power and the permission to do the same because you no longer tolerate being on the wrong path and in the midst of the wrong people. And I hate to say wrong people, but the people that are not for you because everybody's not for us and everything is not for
True.
us. But we're still the same kind of different, like that movie, the same kind of different as me. We are all as different as night and day, but we're the same. And we got to learn to do this life together. And
Yes.
so to do it together, you have to know how to do it alone. And that's another problem. We don't know how to be who we are. So, man,
Right.
I could do this seriously. Like I know we stopped 30 minutes ago, but we've talked 30 more minutes. I can do this because I love, love, love the journey of self. I, you guys have been doing this since 2014 now, I think. 14. The radio
I think
since 2000,
so.
the assessments, I think, since 2014.
Yeah, because it took
And
me a little while to take it. I feel like I took it a year after you had started,
really, I'm
or maybe
still,
a few months. I can't remember.
I'm still unfolding. I'm still becoming. I'm still growing. I'm still learning about myself. I'm still seeing parts of my past, my bondage, my hurt just manifest because I had to get stuff out. I had to dig it
Right.
up. I had to let it be. I had to own it and release it. I had to forgive. I had to learn to, because you don't forget. So you forgive and you deal, like you deal with it, but you don't let it become who you are. You don't let it direct where you're going. It does not become the path for your life. And
Right.
so we don't stop growing. I'm telling you, please, please, please don't ever take for granted that because I'm sitting on this side, because I say that I'm a life coach, that I don't have to do life. Please don't ever think that because I do. And I
Yeah.
have to learn to keep my mouth closed sometimes. I have to make sure that I'm thinking, how do I say this to get the best results, to get the best understanding? I'm
Right.
getting better, but I have to be intentional about it. I have to be aware. I have to be conscious of it. And so just just join us if you'd like to. Mary, we won't get into this, but Mary and I are working on something that's a God thing. This is not a Tammy thing for sure, although it is a God thing. And so stick with us, stick by us, like Tomeria's page, listen to her podcast. Not sure exactly how we will do this, but y'all, my vision for this, I thought about this morning. My vision is so big for this. God, the vision that God is sending until it's gonna be so godly and so timely and so neat
Amen.
and so touching for where we are today in this world. So stay close to us because we need you. We need you. We need you. Ladies, we need you. Stay close, stay connected to us. Something, but stay
Yes.
close because we're going to need you, ladies. We're going to need you.
And definitely connect with Tammy as well. She's doing some great things. So, as you can see, if you have not taken the assessment, definitely do so. And your coaching session, I promise you, will be well worth it.
And oh, Tamara, and we're gonna go for real. For those who the first help me here, God. Okay. The first two people that take the assessment after today, the coaching session will be free. And I won't, I always do a 30-minute get to know the assessment. It doesn't go deep. It just kind of helps you understand it so that you can study on your own if you don't want the coaching. That's 30 minutes. I always do that. but the actual coaching itself can take hours and weeks, depending on where you want to go. So, and how quickly you want to work to get there or travel, how fast you want to drive, I guess.
Right.
So, first two people, and we'll keep, today is the 25th. So, the first two people that take it will reach out for that one-on-one life coaching session, but you do have to pay to take the assessment. And we didn't say that, so it's not free. You have to learn to invest in yourself,
So
and
true.
it is worth it. Think of it as the red bottom shoes, just think of it
Yes.
as an investment in
Of
yourself.
communication.
About a red bottom spirit,
That's
So
true. And I
yeah,
took it
so
twice.
yes.
So
So find your own way, great people. Find your own way. Tomeria, love, love, love you. Thank you for
love
inspiring
you
me.
too.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for being you and accepting me as your husband's sister and becoming my sister. So thank you.
Oh,
Any
well,
final
thank you
words?
as well. Love you all and your family. And this was great. I really enjoyed it. And I hope that that individuals who come back and listen now or later, that they get something powerful from this discussion.
All right, all right. I'm gonna make sure the comment. I oftentimes have been called too nice. So Michelle Brock says, I oftentimes have been called too nice. And you guys, that's just sad. Like that. So think about that. The next time you think somebody's too nice, or sometimes you can be in a grocery store and you speak to someone. I did this because I just like to talk and meet people and have that conversation if possible. And every times people look at like, what's your agenda? What you want? Why are you speaking? And it's sad that we've come to that. But thank you for that, Michelle. And just again, like I said, don't let the world take away your gift, because we need nice people. But those who say people are too nice, what does that mean? And please think before, because you're trying to take someone's gift away. We need them
Exactly.
all. We're all one body with branches, as Tomeria said, and we're all the same kind of different. So don't throw shade on people and who they are. Love or how they are. Love them where they are. So thank you, Michelle, for that. Go
Yes,
take
yes.
the
And thanks
assessment,
for
Michelle,
tuning in. Exactly. Yes.
and get the
I
free
know
yeah,
you'll
get
love
the free coaching. So
it.
yeah. So thank you again, Tamaria. Okay, thank you. We will end here. Blessings, everyone. Thank you for spending Sunday afternoon with us. We'll be on Tuesday, Butterfly Evolution Radio Show, with the title or the conversation, Insecure Men. We'll be discussing that. So I'm not saying, or we're not saying men are insecure, because I feel we're all insecure at some point in time in our life. But we're going to discuss that, um, that we're going to have that conversation. So join us Tuesday, Facebook Live, 7 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. Tamari, when's the next time you're going to be on, or your show's coming out?
Actually, great question. A new show will air tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
So I actually will have it set up to go live at midnight. I finished editing the show today with recording artist Armani. He is also a licensed independent social worker, clinical social worker, as well as a musical artist. So really good interview, which will be released at midnight
Okay, tonight.
on all major podcast platforms. Yes,
Okay.
tonight.
Okay. And if you guys, if you have a story, if you have a conversation that you want to talk about, if you're an author, whatever it is, you could be another life coach. I'll sit and talk to you, because I'll learn something from you. I'll utilize that time. Whatever
Exactly.
your story is, whatever you're passionate about, if you want to have a conversation, please reach out to myself. Please reach out to Mary for her podcast as well, and we'll set up a time to get you on.
Yes.
So we didn't say that. So if you'd like to be a guest on either one of our shows, or both, because I'm going to go get some of the people that Tamara has talked to. I'm going to get some
Oh,
of them
yes,
and bring
please
them
do.
over to the Butterfly Evolution Radio Show. So reach out to us for anything that we can assist you with. Let's just put it like that. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Great night, Tamara. Great conversation. See you
Thank
soon.
you. Good
Thank
night,
you.
everyone.
Good night.